My name is Elena Morrison, and for the last 12 years I've been married to Richard Chen, the president and CEO of First National Bank, one of the largest financial institutions in our state. We have 2 children, Sophie, age 9, and Marcus, age 7. We live in a beautiful home in the historic district, take family vacations to Hawaii every summer, and have built a life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. My family knows none of this. It wasn't always intentional. When Richard and I started dating 14 years ago, I was 26 and working as a junior analyst at a consulting firm. He was 32, already vice president of commercial lending at First National. I met him at a professional networking event, one my mother had explicitly told me not to attend because networking is for people who actually have careers worth developing. I went anyway. Richard and I connected immediately. He was brilliant, kind, funny, and treated me like an equal partner from day one. 6 months into our relationship, I knew he was the one. But introducing him to my family felt impossible. You see, my family operates on a very specific hierarchy. My older sister, Victoria, is the golden child. She married a personal injury attorney named Brett who drives a flashy car and talks constantly about his big cases. They live in a McMansion in the suburbs, throw elaborate parties, and make sure everyone knows exactly how successful they are. My younger brother, Jason, is the creative genius, according to my parents. He's a struggling musician who's never held a job for more than 6 months, but mom calls him artistically gifted, and dad funds his career with a monthly allowance. Then there's me. The family disappointment. Nothing I ever did was good enough. I graduated summa cum laude from a top university. Mom said the school wasn't that impressive. I got promoted to senior analyst within 3 years. Dad said consulting was just making PowerPoints. I bought my first condo at 28. They said it was tiny and in a questionable neighborhood. When Richard proposed after 2 years of dating, I said yes immediately. But I made a decision. I wouldn't tell my family. Not yet. I told myself it was temporary. I'd wait until after the wedding, until we were settled, until the timing was right. But the timing never felt right. Every family gathering reinforced why keeping my distance was the healthier choice. We got married in a small, beautiful ceremony at a vineyard in Napa Valley. Richard's family was there, warm, loving, welcoming. My best friend Sarah was my maid of honor. My colleague Tom walked me down the aisle. It was perfect. I sent my parents a wedding invitation. Formal, printed, delivered by certified mail to their home address. I included a personal note. I'm getting married. I'd love for you to be there. Here are the details. They never responded. Never called. Never showed up. 6 months after the wedding at Thanksgiving dinner, Mom asked casually, "So, Elena is still single? You're 30 now. Clock's ticking." I realized then that they'd never even opened the invitation. Or worse, they had and decided my wedding wasn't worth acknowledging. That's when I made the decision permanent. If they couldn't be bothered to show up for the most important day of my life, they didn't deserve access to any part of my life. Over the next 12 years, I built a beautiful existence separate from them. Richard and I thrived. He advanced rapidly at First National, becoming president 4 years ago. I transitioned from consulting to running my own successful financial advisory firm, specializing in helping women entrepreneurs secure funding. We bought our dream home. We had 2 incredible children. At family gatherings, I wore simple clothes and deflected questions. When they asked about my job, I said financial work, and changed the subject. When they asked about relationships, I said focusing on my career. They interpreted my privacy as failure and loneliness. I let them. Meanwhile, my mother had been trying for 3 years to get a meeting with Richard Chen. She'd started a small real estate investment business and desperately wanted First National to back her ventures. She'd submitted applications, requested meetings, sent countless emails. Every single one was professionally declined. She had no idea that the bank president she was pursuing was the same person sleeping next to me every night. The same person who made pancakes for our kids every Sunday morning. The same person whose photo sat on my desk in a silver frame that said, "My heart." Easter Sunday started like most family gatherings, with immediate criticism. "Elena, you look tired," Mom said as I walked into her house. "Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating properly? You really should take better care of yourself." "Happy Easter, Mom," I replied evenly. "Victoria looks radiant. she continued, gesturing to my sister who was wearing a designer dress and showing off her new Cartier bracelet to our cousins. Success agrees with her. I nodded and headed toward the dining room where the family was gathering for brunch. The table was elaborately decorated. Fresh flowers, china place settings, crystal glasses. Mom loved putting on a show. Jason was already there, tuning his guitar in the corner. "Hey Elena," he said without looking up. "Still doing the boring money stuff?" "Something like that," I replied. Dad barely acknowledged my arrival. He was too busy listening to Brett talk about his latest settlement. $2.3 million, Brett was saying loudly. The insurance company didn't want to go to trial. They knew I'd destroy them. I took my seat quietly and checked my phone. A text from Richard. "How's enemy territory? Kids and I are making cookies. Love you." I smiled and typed back. "Surviving. Give Sophie and Marcus hugs from me. Home by 3. "Who are you texting?" Victoria asked sharply. "You're always on that phone." "It's rude." "Just work," I said calmly. "On Easter Sunday?" Mom interjected. "Elena, you really need to establish boundaries. This is why you'll never advance. You let your job control you." I said nothing. I'd learned years ago that defending myself only fueled longer lectures. Brunch began with the usual family dynamics. Victoria dominated the conversation with stories about her recent trip to Dubai. Brett name-dropped several local politicians he'd helped out. Jason talked about his new demo tape. Mom praised them all enthusiastically. Then, inevitably, the attention turned to me. "So Elena," Aunt Carol said with exaggerated sympathy. "Still single? You must be so lonely." "I'm very happy actually," I replied pleasantly. "But no one special?" Mom pressed. "You're 38 now. I'm not trying to be cruel, but realistically your options are limited. Maybe you should try one of those apps Victoria mentioned." "What was it called?" "Elite Singles," Victoria supplied helpfully. "For professionals. Though I don't know if they'd accept just anyone." "I'm not interested in dating apps," I said evenly. "Because you're too proud?" Dad asked. "Elena, at some point you need to be realistic about your situation. You're not getting any younger. You don't have Victoria's advantages." "Her charm," Mom added. "Or her social connections," Dad continued. "You need to be more practical. Lower your standards." I took a sip of water and said nothing. "I actually heard something interesting," Victoria said suddenly, her eyes gleaming with malicious excitement. "Someone told me they saw you wearing a ring on your left hand. At that coffee shop downtown." The table went silent. "A wedding ring," Victoria continued. "Which is weird because you've been telling us you're single." "Elena," Mom said slowly, her voice sharp. "Have you been lying to us?" "I haven't lied about anything," I replied calmly. "Show us your hand," Dad demanded. I'd taken my rings off before arriving. I always did. They sat safely in my car's console. I held up my bare left hand. "See," I said. "No ring." "Then what was Victoria's friend talking about?" Mom demanded. "Maybe they were mistaken," I suggested. "Or maybe you're running some kind of scam," Victoria said. "Pretending to be married to seem more successful than you are. That's honestly pathetic, Elena." "I agree," Mom said firmly. "This has gone on long enough. I've suspected for years that you've been exaggerating your life. The vague job descriptions. The mysterious busy schedule that keeps you from family events. The way you deflect every personal question. This charade ends now," Dad added. "We deserve the truth." I looked at my mother. For 12 years she'd dismissed me, insulted me, and made it clear I was the family embarrassment. For 12 years she'd been trying desperately to get a meeting with my husband, not knowing she'd failed to attend his wedding. Not knowing she had 2 grandchildren she'd never met. "Show proof you're married," Mom demanded. "Right now. Or admit you've been lying." The entire table was staring at me. Victoria looked triumphant. Jason looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank watched with obvious curiosity. Brett was smirking. I took out my phone calmly. "Obvious lies," Dad muttered. "I've always said Elena lives in a fantasy world." I typed a text message. "Love, my mom needs verification we're married. Can you call her? She's at 5550147. I hit send. Then I looked up at my mother and smiled politely. My spouse is calling you now. One moment. Your spouse. Victoria laughed. Elena, this is ridiculous. Mom's phone rang. The sound cut through the room like a knife. Everyone froze. Mom looked at her phone. Her face went completely white. The caller ID read, Richard Chen, First National Bank President. That's Richard Chen, Mom whispered. Why is Richard Chen calling me? You should answer it, I said calmly. He doesn't like to wait. Mom's hand was shaking as she answered the phone. Hello? Mr. Chen. I couldn't hear Richard's words, but I could see Mom's reaction. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly. The color drained completely from her face. Yes. What? She stammered. Your wife. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Victoria was staring at me with dawning horror. Dad had gone completely still. Elena Morrison, yes, that's my daughter, but... Mom's voice cracked. Since when? 12 years. That's not... We would have known. The room was absolutely silent except for Mom's increasingly distressed responses. A wedding invitation? No, we never. There must have been some certified mail. Mom's free hand clutched the edge of the table. Mr. Chen, I'm certain we never received. You have the signature confirmation? That's not possible. I took another sip of water and waited. 2 children. Mom's voice was barely a whisper now. Sophie and Marcus? Ages 9 and 7? But Elena never said. Family photos? On your desk at the bank. Dad stood up abruptly. Let me talk to him. Mom handed over the phone with a shaking hand. Mr. Chen, this is Robert Morrison, Elena's father, Dad said, trying to sound authoritative but failing. There's clearly been some kind of misunderstanding here. Elena has never mentioned being married, so naturally we're quite surprised by. His voice trailed off. He listened. His jaw clenched. I see, he said tightly. And you're saying Elena has documentation of this alleged wedding invitation? I pulled out my phone again and opened my photos. I'd kept everything. The certified mail receipt with Dad's signature accepting delivery. The tracking information showing the invitation had been delivered to their home address on March 15th, 12 years ago, 6 weeks before my wedding. Photos of the unopened invitation, still in its envelope, that I'd found in their recycling bin during a visit 3 months after the wedding. I'd gone to their house to try one more time to tell them about Richard, about our marriage, about choosing to build a life together. I was going to show them photos, introduce them to my husband properly, try to repair our relationship. Instead, I'd seen my wedding invitation, torn, unopened, thrown away with the junk mail. That was the moment I stopped trying. The invitation was delivered, Dad was saying into the phone. But we receive a lot of mail. It's entirely possible that in the normal course of... What do you mean certified mail requires signature confirmation? I'm sure if I had signed for anything important I would have. Robert Morrison, yes, that's my signature, but... His face had gone gray. I understand you're upset, Mr. Chen, but you have to understand our position. Elena has always been... difficult. She's never shared information about her life. She's secretive. Distant. How were we supposed to know she'd gotten married if she didn't tell us directly? I could hear Richard's voice through the phone now, not the words but the tone. Professional. Devastating. Dad's hand clenched around the phone. Mr. Chen, I don't appreciate your tone. I'm Elena's father and I deserve some respect here. This is a family matter and your involvement is... What? What do you mean I don't get to lecture you about family? Mr. Chen, I must insist that you... The line went dead. Dad stood there holding the silent phone, his face a mask of shock and rage. He hung up on me, Dad said incredulously. Richard Chen, president of First National Bank, hung up on me. Victoria found her voice first. You're married to Richard Chen? The Richard Chen. For 12 years, I confirmed. That's impossible, Brett said. I've met Richard Chen. At the Bar Association Gala. He would have mentioned that his wife's family doesn't acknowledge her existence? I interrupted. Yes, I'm sure that would have come up naturally in conversation. Mom had tears streaming down her face. Elena, why didn't you tell us? We're your family. We had a right to know. I looked at her directly. I sent you a wedding invitation. Certified mail. You signed for it on March 15th, 12 years ago. You threw it away without opening it. We wouldn't. Mom's voice broke. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo. The torn envelope with their address. The certified mail receipt. Dad's signature accepting delivery. I tried to tell you, I said quietly. You literally threw my wedding in the trash. The silence was deafening. Elena, Aunt Carol said carefully. If you've been married this whole time, the questions we've asked you, why didn't you just say something? I did say something, I replied. I sent an invitation to the most important day of my life. When you didn't show up, didn't call, didn't acknowledge it at all, I understood exactly where I stood. You've spent 12 years asking if I'm lonely, if I'm single, if I'll ever find someone. Not once did any of you consider that maybe I had a life you just weren't part of. But the children, Mom whispered. We're their grandparents. We have a right. You have no rights, I said firmly. Sophie and Marcus have 4 loving grandparents. Richard's parents have been there for every birthday, every school play, every important moment. They're wonderful people who treat me like a daughter. Elena, please, Mom begged. We made a mistake. We can fix this. Let us meet our grandchildren. Let us be part of your life. Why? I asked simply. You've made it very clear that nothing I do is good enough for you. Why would I expose my children to that? Victoria stood up suddenly. This is insane. You've been lying to us for over a decade. I never lied once, I interrupted. You made assumptions. I didn't correct them. There's a difference. That's semantics, Victoria snapped. No, that's boundaries, I replied. You demanded proof I'm married. I provided it. Richard confirmed it. You have your answer. Dad found his voice again. Elena, you're being incredibly unfair. We deserve a chance to what? I asked. To criticize my husband the way you've criticized everything else about me? To find new ways I'm not living up to Victoria's standard? To tell my children they're not as special as their cousins? We would never, Mom started. You've spent 12 years doing exactly that to me, I said quietly. I won't let you do it to Sophie and Marcus. Brett, in a stunning display of poor judgment, chose this moment to speak. Elena, I think you're overreacting. Your parents made one mistake with a piece of mail 12 years ago. You've built this entire narrative about being mistreated when really you're just overly sensitive. It's actually quite selfish, keeping your children from their family over something so petty. I looked at him. Richard and I have been together for 14 years, married for 12. In that time, my family has insulted me at every single gathering. Told me I was failing. Compared me unfavorably to Victoria. Dismissed my career. Mocked my life choices. That's not one mistake, Brett. That's a pattern. That's just how families communicate, he argued. If you can't handle a little criticism. Richard Chen is the president of First National Bank, I said calmly. One of the most powerful financial executives in this state. He chose me as his life partner. We've built a successful marriage, raised 2 beautiful children, and created a life filled with love and mutual respect. If my family can't see my value, that's not my problem to fix. Mom was openly crying now. Elena, please. I'm begging you. Give us a chance. We'll do better. We'll change. I stood up and collected my purse. Mom, for the past 3 years, you've been desperately trying to get a meeting with Richard. Submitting loan applications. Sending emails. Requesting consultations. Every single application was declined. Do you know why? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Because Richard knows exactly how you've treated me. Every declined invitation to a family event. Every dismissive comment. Every comparison to Victoria. Every time you've made me feel worthless. He's seen all of it, and he made the professional decision that First National Bank doesn't do business with people who treat their own daughter like garbage. That's not fair, Dad sputtered. Mixing family issues with business. You're right, I agreed. It's not fair. Just like it wasn't fair that you threw away my wedding invitation. Just like it wasn't fair that you've spent 12 years telling me I'm not good enough. Life isn't fair, Dad. You taught me that. I walked toward the door. Elena, wait. Victoria called out. You can't just leave like this. We need to talk about this. Richard Chen is incredibly influential. He knows everyone. He could help Brett's career. He could. I turned back. And there it is. You don't want to know me. You want access to my husband's connections. That's not what I meant, Victoria backtracked quickly. I just meant that we're family and family helps each other, and if Richard is in a position to... Goodbye, Victoria. Elena Morrison. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. You will not walk out of this house. I am your mother. I deserve respect. I deserve answers. I deserve to meet my grandchildren. I stopped at the door and looked back at her. Mom, you deserve exactly what you've earned. Which is nothing. I made it to my car before my phone started exploding. Text from Victoria. You've always been selfish and now you're punishing the whole family because you have a chip on your shoulder. This is pathetic. Text from Dad. Your mother is devastated. I hope you're proud of yourself. Call me immediately so we can discuss this like adults. Text from Mom. Please, Elena. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please let me meet my grandchildren. Please give me a chance. I'll do anything. Text from Jason. That was intense. Are you okay? For what it's worth, I always thought they were too hard on you. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I texted Richard, leaving now. It went about as expected. His response was immediate. Kids and I made your favorite cookies. Come home. The drive home took 20 minutes. With every mile I felt lighter. When I pulled into our driveway, Sophie and Marcus came running out of the house, covered in flour and chocolate chips. Mommy, Sophie squealed. We made triple chocolate cookies and Daddy let us eat 4 each. Before lunch, Marcus added proudly. Richard appeared in the doorway, smiling. How was brunch? Eventful, I said, hugging my children. I'll tell you later. Your phone's been buzzing like crazy, he noted. I know. I'm turning it off for the rest of the day. We spent Easter afternoon in our backyard. The kids hunted for eggs Richard had hidden. We ate cookies. We laughed. We were together. This was my family. This was my life. And it was beautiful. Monday morning I turned my phone back on. 63 text messages. 14 voicemails. 27 emails. Most were from my mother, increasingly desperate. A few from Victoria, oscillating between angry and manipulative. Several from extended family members I barely knew, suddenly interested in reconnecting. I deleted them all without reading most of them. Then I called my lawyer, who also happened to be a close friend. Sarah, I need you to draft a formal cease and desist letter. My family is to have no contact with me, my husband, or my children. No calls, no texts, no emails, no showing up at our home or workplaces. About time, Sarah said. I'll have it ready by tomorrow. At work, I had a consultation with a new client, a woman named Jennifer who was starting a bakery and needed funding. Smart, passionate, nervous about her first major loan application. I'm terrified of going to the banks, she admitted. I've heard they're ruthless. Especially First National. I smiled. First National has an excellent small business division. I actually know the president personally. If you'd like, I can make an introduction. Her eyes widened. You know Richard Chen? Very well, I confirmed. We're quite close. That evening at dinner, Sophie asked, Mommy, why don't we ever see your parents? Marcus's friend has 4 grandparents and we only have 2. Richard and I had discussed this conversation many times, preparing for when our children were old enough to ask. Some families are smaller, I explained gently. Some people choose not to be part of each other's lives. But that doesn't mean we have less love. Grandma and Grandpa Chen love you so much, and Daddy and I love you so much, and we have Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tom and all our friends who are like family. Okay, Sophie said, satisfied. Can I have more broccoli? My phone rang. I declined the call. It rang again. Victoria. Declined. Richard reached across the table and took my hand. You okay? I'm perfect, I said honestly. And I was. 3 weeks later, my mother showed up at my office. My assistant Maya called me. Elena, there's a woman here claiming to be your mother. She doesn't have an appointment. She's quite insistent. Tell her I'm unavailable, I replied. And if she doesn't leave, call security. Understood. 5 minutes later, Maya called back. She's gone. She left this note. The note was brought to my office. I recognized Mom's handwriting immediately. Elena, please. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I failed you. But I'm begging you for one chance to meet my grandchildren. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to therapy. I'll apologize. I'll prove I've changed. Please. Just one chance. Mom. I held the note for a long moment. Then I put it in my drawer unanswered. That weekend, Richard and I took Sophie and Marcus to his parents' house for Sunday dinner. Richard's mother, Diane, made her famous dumplings. His father, James, taught Marcus a new card game. Sophie showed off her latest art project. Elena, dear, Diane said as we cleared the table. Richard told me what happened at your family's Easter gathering. I tensed slightly. She took my hand. I'm so sorry you went through that. But I want you to know, you are our daughter. Sophie and Marcus are our grandchildren. And we are so grateful every single day that our son found you. I hugged her tightly, tears in my eyes. This was family. This was what it was supposed to feel like. A month after the Easter incident, I received a formal letter from my parents' attorney. They were requesting grandparents' rights, demanding visitation with Sophie and Marcus. Sarah called me immediately. Elena, this is absurd. They have no case. They've never met the children. They've never been part of their lives. No judge would grant this. I know, I said. But let's respond professionally. Thoroughly document why this request should be denied. Sarah's response letter was devastating. It included documentation of the wedding invitation they'd discarded. 12 years of missed birthdays, holidays, and family events. Screenshots of Victoria's insulting texts. A professional psychological evaluation explaining why contact would be harmful to the children. A statement from Richard detailing their behavior toward me. The case was dismissed in less than 2 weeks. My mother tried one more time. She appeared at Sophie's school during pickup. The school had already been briefed. Security escorted her off the property. She was formally trespassed. That night I wrote her one final email. Mom, you have spent my entire life making me feel worthless. You threw away my wedding invitation without opening it. You spent 12 years asking if I was lonely while I was building a beautiful life with an incredible man and raising 2 wonderful children. You don't get to decide you want to be involved now that you've discovered my life is more successful than you imagined. Richard and I have built a family based on love, respect, and mutual support. Sophie and Marcus are surrounded by people who cherish them. They don't need grandparents who might someday decide they're not good enough. I wish you well. But you are not welcome in my life. Do not contact me again. Elena. I hit send and blocked her email address. 2 years later, I was featured in Forbes magazine's Top 40 Under 40 list for my work helping women entrepreneurs secure funding. The article included a photo of Richard, me, and our children at a charity gala. I heard through mutual acquaintances that my mother saw the article. That she tried to contact Forbes claiming I'd want to share the recognition with my family. That she was told politely that the profile had been approved by me personally, and I'd specified no family connections be mentioned. I also heard that Dad's business was struggling, that Victoria and Brett were getting divorced, and that Jason finally got a real job. I felt nothing. No vindication. No satisfaction. Just nothing. My life moved forward beautifully without them. Sophie is now 11 and wants to be a marine biologist. Marcus is 9 and has decided he's going to be either a chef or a superhero, maybe both. Richard was recently offered a position as regional vice president overseeing 12 states. I'm expanding my firm to 3 new cities. Last week at Marcus's soccer game, a woman approached me. I didn't recognize her at first. My cousin Amanda, whom I hadn't seen in years. Elena, she said carefully. I wanted to apologize. I was at that Easter brunch. I should have said something. I should have defended you. I was a coward. I considered her words. Thank you for saying that. Your kids are beautiful, she said, watching Sophie and Marcus playing. You've built a really good life. I have, I agreed. Do you ever think about reconciling with your parents? She asked. I looked at Richard, who was coaching Marcus through a drill. At Sophie, who was teaching a younger player how to tie her cleats. At the life we'd built through love and intentional choices. No, I said honestly. I chose my family. And I chose well. That evening we went home to our beautiful house. We made dinner together. We laughed at Sophie's jokes. We helped Marcus with his homework. Richard and I sat on the porch after the kids went to bed, holding hands and planning our summer vacation. My phone buzzed. An email from my mother with the subject line, Please. I deleted it without opening it and turned off my phone. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. You don't owe access to people who made you feel worthless no matter what DNA you share. I built my own family. I chose people who chose me back. And that made all the difference.